The smell of leather and old books filled the federal courthouse as I sat across from District Judge Jamie, showing him evidence of HOA corruption. My phone buzzed with a security alert that made my blood run cold. There on the screen was Brenda Thornwick, our HOA president, forcing her way into my lake cabin 200 meters away. The sound of splintering wood came through the speaker as she kicked in the back door. Judge Jamie leaned over to watch the live feed. "Is that happening right now?" he asked. Brenda had no idea federal agents were already positioned around my property. No idea the judge was watching her commit breaking and entering in real time. And she definitely had no idea that her 3-year campaign to terrorize military families was about to land her in federal prison. You see, when you mess with the wrong veteran's home while he's meeting with a federal judge about your crimes, that's what we call perfect timing. My name is Marcus Kelly. 6 months earlier, I thought I'd found paradise. After 30 years in telecommunications, engineering, and a decent payout from some patents I developed, I retired early to restore my grandfather's lake cabin in Pine Lake, Montana. The place had been in our family since 1967. Weathered cedar walls, a hand-built stone fireplace, and a dock that stretched into water so clear you could see trout swimming 20 feet down. Morning coffee always tasted better there. Steam rising from a mug while loons called across the still water, and the old dock creaked under my boots. Pure peace. My wife, Sarah, loved the idea of turning it into a retreat center for veterans. Our teenage daughter, Emma, claimed the loft bedroom overlooking the lake. Then I met Brenda Thornwick. Picture a woman who treats a leather folder like a weapon and drives a white SUV so pristine you'd think it was factory fresh daily. Brenda had been HOA president for 6 years, ran a local real estate office, and had sharp features permanently arranged in disapproval. The day she introduced herself, I caught a whiff of expensive perfume mixing with the pine scent. Somehow, even nature smelled less authentic around her. "Welcome to Pine Lake," she said, though her tone suggested I wasn't particularly welcome at all. "I trust you'll familiarize yourself with our community standards." 3 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. Thick, official-looking paper that felt expensive between my fingers. Inside was a $1,500 fine for unauthorized structure modifications. The violation. My grandfather's dock extension built in 1972. When I called, Brenda explained that recent satellite imaging had revealed non-compliant structures. All waterfront modifications required current HOA approval. The absurdity was immediate. The HOA wasn't even formed until 1985. My grandfather's dock predated their organization by 13 years. I had the original building permits, survey documents, even photos of him and my dad fishing off that dock when I was 10. I showed up to the next HOA meeting armed with documentation. The community center smelled like burnt coffee and floor wax under humming fluorescent lights. Maybe 15 people sat in folding chairs. I laid out the photos, permits, and timeline proving the dock was grandfathered in. Brenda barely glanced at my evidence. "Grandfathered structures require annual compliance fees," she announced. $500 monthly for a historical structure maintenance assessment. $6,000 a year for a dock that was perfectly legal when it was built. That's when I started noticing the pattern. During the meeting, I caught whispered conversations from other residents that always stopped when Brenda looked their way. An elderly neighbor named Gladys quietly mentioned she'd seen similar problems with other military families. After the meeting, I did some digging. 3 veteran families had faced escalating fines in the past 2 years. 2 had sold their properties. Both sales were handled by Brenda's real estate company. This wasn't about dock compliance or community standards. This was about pushing out veterans. 2 weeks later, Brenda escalated. She showed up unannounced on a Tuesday morning, clipboard in hand, with a guy she introduced as Dale, supposedly a county inspector. The smell of stale cigarette smoke and cheap aftershave preceded them up my gravel driveway. Dale looked uncomfortable, constantly glancing at Brenda like a nervous dog waiting for commands. His county inspector badge hung crooked on a shirt that had seen better decades. "Routine safety inspection," Brenda announced, brushing past me without permission. "We've received multiple complaints about electrical hazards near the water." I followed them around, watching Dale point at perfectly legal GFCI outlets designed for outdoor use. Every time he hesitated, Brenda cleared her throat and tapped her pen against that leather folder. The metallic clicking made my teeth clench. "This outlet's dangerously close to the waterline," Dale mumbled, photographing one that was 15 feet from the shoreline and completely up to code. I'd installed it myself using my engineering background. The violation list grew. $1,500 for electrical noncompliance. $1,200 for an unpermitted recreational fire feature. My grandfather's weathered stone circle from the 1960s. $1,500 more for failure to maintain adequate waterfront safety standards. Plus $300 monthly monitoring fees. Total immediate damage, $4,200, with $300 bleeding out every month thereafter. That night, I couldn't sleep. The injustice gnawed at me. So I researched. Montana requires all building inspectors to carry state certification with licenses searchable online through the Department of Labor. Dale's name was nowhere. But Dale Morrison, real estate agent at Thornwick Properties, there he was. I filed a complaint with the state licensing board the next morning. From that point forward, every interaction with Brenda happened via email. No more phone calls she could deny or twist later. Within days, anonymous noise complaints started appearing about my perfectly legal restoration work between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Fresh parking restriction signs materialized overnight, seemingly designed to make accessing my property inconvenient. Brenda's heels clicking on asphalt became my early warning system. She patrolled like a corrections officer, always carrying that leather folder, always photographing something. That's when I installed security cameras covering the driveway, dock, and public areas where she liked to conduct surveillance. The first week of footage was revealing. There was Brenda at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, measuring my dock while Dale held a flashlight. They photographed it from multiple angles. But they weren't just documenting my property. I watched them perform identical late-night inspections at 3 other houses, all owned by veterans. 2 weeks of footage revealed the pattern. Brenda's white SUV made regular midnight stops at properties belonging to military families. She'd photograph, measure, and document during hours when she assumed no one was watching. The smoking gun came from enhanced audio on one clear recording. Brenda stood in my driveway at midnight. Phone pressed her ear. "The Kelly property should be straightforward," she said. "These military types always crack under sustained pressure. A few more violations, and he'll be desperate to sell below market value." I had footage of systematic harassment, fake inspections, and discriminatory targeting based on veteran status. Armed with that evidence, I thought I had her cornered. Instead, she doubled down with legal intimidation. A cease and desist letter arrived on expensive law firm letterhead threatening a lien on my property unless I paid $7,800 in accumulated fines within 30 days. The law firm's website looked abandoned since 2003. In the county courthouse basement, I found the original HOA formation documents from 1985. The current covenants had been significantly altered over the years, including the creation of the historical structure assessment that was costing me $500 monthly. Those amendments required approval from 75% of homeowners. Most of Brenda's rule changes had passed with tiny majorities, often with less than half the community present. Invalid rule changes are just expensive toilet paper when they hit federal court. I reached out to displaced veteran families. Pete Michaels, a Desert Storm vet, had been driven out 6 months earlier. Same playbook, dock violations, electrical complaints, then $12,000 in fines for a shed built in 1992. He sold for $180,000 to escape the legal bills. 3 months later, Brenda's company flipped it for $320,000. The pattern was undeniable. Identify veteran families through public records. Manufacture violations. Escalate fines until financial pressure forces a below-market sale. Resell through Brenda's network for massive profits. My mailbox got spray-painted with "Troublemaker" in red letters. Anonymous notes appeared under my windshield wipers. Military types don't belong in family neighborhoods. The psychological warfare was working. Emma started asking if we could move back to town. Sarah flinched every time a car door slammed. Then someone tried to break into my cabin while I was in town buying supplies. Security footage showed Brenda's white SUV parked at the far end of the street, engine running. Fresh scratches around the lock and displaced gravel told the story. The attempt happened exactly during hours Brenda knew I'd be gone. Information she could only have by monitoring my routines. 3 days later, a notice appeared in every mailbox. Emergency HOA meeting to address disruptive residents threatening community safety. The agenda was buried in legal jargon, but the intent was clear. They wanted to vote on foreclosing my property. I spent Tuesday night reaching out to neighbors I could trust. Gladys, the elderly widow 2 doors down, told me over the phone that her husband Harold, a Korean War veteran, had gone through the same thing. The stress contributed to his heart attack 6 months into the fight. Thursday's meeting was stacked. Only 12 people showed up out of 40 homeowners. Brenda's allies were there. Dale, 2 agents from her office, residents who'd received mysterious fine reductions the week before. Her presentation included aerial photos with red circles around alleged violations, charts showing declining property values, and a slide of me in my army dress uniform from Emma's career day overlaid with text. Military training. Asset or liability in family communities. She continued in a concerned, almost pitying tone. Studies show military personnel often struggle with civilian integration. While we appreciate their service, we must prioritize the safety and stability of our families. I sat in the back row legally recording everything. Montana is one-party consent. Every discriminatory word was captured. During a brief recess, Brenda leaned over to Dale and whispered, thinking the recording had stopped. Military people bring down neighborhoods. Everyone knows that. Once we clear out the Kellys and that Martinez family, we can market this as an upscale family community. No more PTSD cases or government dependency problems. After the predetermined vote, 8 for foreclosure, 4 against, I stood up calmly. I appreciate everyone's time. I'll be appealing through proper legal channels. But discrimination against veterans is a federal crime, and everything said here today is now part of an official record. Brenda's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. Empty threats won't change a lawful vote, Mr. Kelly. As I walked out, Gladys pressed a folded paper into my hand, written in shaky handwriting, a phone number and 5 words. Call him. He can help. The number led to Judge William Jamie, Gladys's son-in-law. I've been monitoring HOA discrimination patterns across Montana for the past 18 months, he told me. Your case isn't isolated. It's part of something much bigger. That Friday, I sat in his chambers in Helena, surrounded by law books and confidential files. He spread out a map dotted with red pins. 23 HOAs across Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming showing identical patterns of targeting military families. Federal subpoenas had already been issued for financial records from Thornwick Properties and similar operations. Hundreds of veteran families systematically driven from their homes. He explained they'd been building the case for months, but needed someone still fighting back. Someone with evidence and the courage to keep going publicly while agents worked behind the scenes. They wanted me to continue appearing vulnerable so Brenda would escalate and create more evidence. Monday morning in the Helena Federal Building, I met Assistant U.S. Attorney Janet Morrison. You're about to become part of the largest HOA corruption investigation in U.S. history, she said, sliding a thick folder across her desk. Operation Clean Sweep involved 47 defendants across 6 states. FBI financial crimes agents had tracked money laundering through real estate transactions for 8 months. Civil rights investigators documented systematic discrimination. The IRS pursued tax evasion on unreported profits. My role, keep acting like a desperate homeowner while federal surveillance documented every move. They fitted me with a tiny recording device, installed hidden high-def cameras around my property, disguised as utility work, and positioned emergency response teams. The community network was larger than I realized. Harold's military buddies from 3 wars had been quietly documenting Brenda's campaign for years. Vietnam vet Chuck Martinez kept detailed logs. Korea vet Bill Patterson photographed midnight surveillance with night vision gear. Desert Storm vet Linda Foster secretly recorded meetings. The legal strategy combined RICO charges to dismantle the network, civil rights violations with mandatory minimums, mail fraud for intimidating documents sent through the Postal Service, and wire fraud for the fake social media campaign. Brenda escalated. One Tuesday night, the power went out to 4 veteran-owned properties, including mine. By morning, we discovered the main line had been surgically severed. Federal cameras captured Dale approaching the utility pole with wire cutters at 2:17 a.m., while Brenda idled nearby in her SUV. 3 days later, my water line ruptured overnight, a geyser erupting exactly where Dale had inspected the week before. Emergency repairs cost thousands. Anonymous flyers appeared asking if the neighborhood felt safe with unstable veterans. My mailbox was vandalized again. Fake social media accounts spread rumors about my stability based on military background. Brenda's connections warned local contractors against working with me. Federal teams traced everything. The fake accounts led back to sources linked to her. The sabotage crossed state commerce boundaries, triggering federal jurisdiction. The endgame came when wiretaps captured Brenda telling Dale they needed direct evidence of his instability to justify emergency removal proceedings. They planned to plant fabricated evidence. I made a show of leaving for Helena that weekend for legal consultations. Federal surveillance stayed on my cabin. Saturday morning in Judge Jamie's chambers, I watched live footage. Brenda's white SUV parked behind pine trees at 11:47 a.m. Dale's truck followed with construction equipment. They picked the lock, entered, and began planting fake extremist literature, counterfeit drug paraphernalia, and forged threat documents. Microphones captured every word. "Once we photograph this tomorrow," Brenda whispered, "emergency restraining orders will force immediate property seizure. The Martinez family will see what happens to troublemakers and accept our offer voluntarily." Federal agents moved in as they emerged, arrested on breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and multiple other charges. Brenda's phone revealed a network spanning 6 states. Over 200 veteran families targeted. Millions in illegal profits laundered. Dale cooperated fully. His testimony helped break up similar rings across 4 states. The press conference on the Helena Federal Courthouse steps made national headlines. U.S. Attorney Morrison announced a 47-count indictment against Brenda Thornwick and 12 co-conspirators for civil rights violations, racketeering, and conspiracy to defraud military families. Federal asset forfeiture seized $2.8 million. Every targeted family received full restitution plus emotional damages. Brenda received 18 years in federal prison. Dale got 3 years and became the star witness in prosecutions across states. 6 months later, Pine Lake had transformed. A new HOA board, with me as elected president, made governance transparent. Livestream meetings, quarterly independent audits, ironclad anti-discrimination protections. We started a Freedom Day celebration on the anniversary of Brenda's arrest. The community gathers around tables, sharing food and stories. The Pine Lake Veteran Scholarship, funded by restitution and community donations, provides full college scholarships for military children who faced housing discrimination. This morning, I sit on my grandfather's restored dock, steam rising from coffee that tastes like freedom. Loons call across water, so clear it reflects every cloud. The dock that nearly cost me everything now hosts community fishing tournaments where veterans teach neighborhood children to cast lines and tell stories about courage. Justice took time, courage, and people willing to stand up and say enough. But it came wrapped in federal badges and delivered with constitutional authority. Your HOA nightmare could be someone else's federal case. If you've dealt with tyrants like Brenda, you're not alone anymore.